Let's bring in Fox News contributor, Marine veteran, Joey Jones. Joey, you see the president, you heard him today. What say you?
Yeah, it's tough to honor a holiday or a Memorial Day of 9/11 when you're the one that gave up the war, that gave up the fight. You're the one that ensured that all of the sacrifice since 9/11 was for naught. You're the one that stands in front of the bully pulpit and tells 330 million Americans that the Taliban is our partners. The Taliban, the folks who were instrumental in taking those towers down, the folks who were instrumental in attacking the Pentagon, who were instrumental in the flight that landed in a field in Pennsylvania. You're calling that group of people our partners. They killed thousands of my friends. They killed thousands on that day. They've killed thousands through sickness since. And that's our partners. You and your general say that. You say it loudly and proudly. Biden said that just a few months ago, that he told us the Taliban would make sure Al-Qaeda didn't form in Afghanistan. And the Taliban were true to their word. So when that's your posture on our enemy, it makes complete sense to me that you wouldn't think enough of this holiday than to memorialize it, I don't know, at one of the three locations that make the most sense. We can do amazing things in this country. I can get myself from one coast to the other to be on TV, but he can't get from Alaska to New York, D.C., or Pennsylvania to honor innocent Americans that sacrificed their lives that day. I
think it's a really good point, and it's such a cavalier attitude toward the remembrance of the day of 9/11. But what does it mean also to the men and women who, after 9/11, raised their hand to serve? I think there's a lot of people who never anticipated serving in the U.S. military, but on September 12th, had a change of heart and said, you know what, duty calls, and I want to defend my country. I want to fight for freedom. I'm going to engage with the military to fight for what we hold so dear in this country, as well as the victims of 9/11, that Joe Biden doesn't even have the capacity or the heart to get back to one of the three places where these crashes or terrorist attacks took place. What message does that send to them?
The message it sends to me is that our leaders don't exist in Washington, D.C. They exist in communities all over this country. Our leaders are the men and women who in their teens saw those towers fall like I did in 9th grade getting ready for football practice. And when I laid on my back on the football field for a team that hadn't won a game yet, I looked up and the coach pointed out to us, hey, they're hitting a plane in the sky right now. What happened today was a big deal. And we didn't quite understand the gravity of it, or this week, that might have been a few days later. We didn't quite understand the gravity of it in a small town in Georgia. New York was a world away. But our football coach made sure we understood we might go to battle together on a football game in the next week or two, but it'd be a year or two and we'd be to battle in a different way. And he really proved that, or drove that point home to us that, hey, this feeling you feel like you're a warrior out on a football field, you might actually have to prove that one day because of what happened. And so there are men and women all over this country that felt that as a teenager. For whatever reason, that point got driven home to them so much that they were inspired to put their life on the line. And let me tell you, a bunch of them are in Arlington and veteran cemeteries all over this country now. And we owe them everything. Not because Al-Qaeda or the Taliban could have destroyed us, but because any enemy that is knocking in our doors, if there's a generation of American worth fighting them, it doesn't matter the consequence of that enemy. It matters the consequence of that generation. And my generation was the last one to stand up. I hope my sons doesn't have to, but probably they will. And you need leaders that honor that represent that show the world how necessary it is. And you don't do it. You don't do it with what happened 2 years ago in Afghanistan, and you don't do it with what happened today with the president not honoring by being at one of those places.
Joey, President Biden says Al-Qaeda's threat is near zero. Listen to this.
And today, our intelligence community has recently assessed in a declassified memo that Al-Qaeda threat from Afghanistan and Pakistan has reached a historic low.
Well, 2 years ago, when he was ordering the complete pullout from Afghanistan, he said, quote, Al-Qaeda's gone from Afghanistan. Well, that was a lie then.
Yeah, let me tell you something. There's no way the threat is lower today than when we had about 10,000 troops in Afghanistan. And on that day, they killed 13 of us and 170 innocent Afghans. So don't tell me that terrorist groups, whether it be Al-Qaeda or ISIS-K or ISIS or the Taliban, don't play semantics with me and say, oh, well, this one threat, that one's not a big deal. His president, while he was vice president, had to chew crow and send our men and women to kill ISIS after he said they were JV. So, okay, maybe Al-Qaeda isn't as bad. But what about the others? What about the other 20 some odd organizations that are in Afghanistan right now? And I'm not saying we should be there at war, but there's a difference between being at war and having a presence. I don't know where President Trump was headed, but I know where President Biden got us. He got us in a place where we don't know what's happening in Afghanistan. We don't have the human intelligence, and we don't have the troops near the ground. And if you're going to do that, you better dang sure know you're putting us in a place of strength, and that's not what happened.
You know, we don't have Bagram Air Base. Shameful that we gave that up. You know, Joy, I want to get your take on this as well. We're talking about Joe Biden, but I also want to talk about the full frontal assault on our right to bear arms as power-hungry New Mexico Governor Democrat Michelle Lujan Grisham bucks the Second Amendment. She's issued a concealed carry gun ban in Albuquerque for 30 days. She says it's all about public safety and the Constitution. That's not absolute.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. There are restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms.
Well, Joy, that didn't go over too well with dozens defying the order at a protest over the weekend. Watch this.
All I want to do is protect my family, my friends, and my community. But the governor wants to take that right away.
The executive in this state does not have the ability to willfully violate your rights. So use your ability to sue her. Everyone here should sue her.
The governor even losing support from fellow Democrats. California Congressman Ted Lieu posting on X, quote, "I support gun safety laws. However, the order from the governor of New Mexico violates the U.S. Constitution. No state in the union can suspend the federal Constitution. There is no such thing as a state public health emergency, exception to the U.S. Constitution." So, Joey, I mean, I got to tell you what, this is wildly scary and frightening that you have a governor that says, I have the power, because it's a health emergency, to suspend the U.S. Constitution? What?
Yeah, two things here that we need to think about, we need to consider. Just a few years ago, our right to do just about anything was threatened at the local, state, and federal level under the guise of a public health emergency. So we need to understand that was the beginning, not the end. That was the beginning. Now they're going to take that and they're going to try to apply it everywhere they can. The second thing is we do have an election coming up. After the last election, we had a wave of states passing and governors signing constitutional carry, which means through your constitutional rights alone, you can carry a firearm. Those two things come to a head in this next election. I hate it for the people in New Mexico. I hope they take this to court and win it for all of us. I don't know who has standing. I don't think attorneys generals from other states can do much about this, but I hope the people of New Mexico do and provide cover from the Supreme Court down for the rest of us. But for all of us in other states that have a vote coming up, remember this. Which state do you live in? How do they handle your Second Amendment rights? And how do you want them to be handled? And I think it becomes a referendum on the ballot that can only hurt Democrats, especially her, and I hope it does.
She knew what she was doing. She did it for 30 days, assuming that it would not have enough time to get in front of the Supreme Court. There have already been 2 lawsuits filed just by Saturday. She did it on Friday, the National Association for Gun Rights and the Gun Owners of America.
Yeah.
And the law enforcement in Albuquerque and the county said, we're not enforcing it.
So please, we're not going to enforce this.
Guys, if gun rights groups aren't raising millions of dollars off this, shame on them. They need new leadership. I mean, she really just handed a silver platter to gun rights activists and those of us that are activists in the sense that we exercise our Second Amendment right. I mean, give money to these organizations that are doing good work and make her choices come back to bite her.
Yep.
There was thoughts that Republicans could win New Mexico in 2020. I think this move actually makes that far more possible.
That's why Ted Lieu went, no.
I'm not with that. Joy, quick, want to get your take on this last topic.
And others.
No, let me quickly get your take on this. It's the latest development in the fight for parental rights in public schools. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin issuing a pardon for Scott Smith, the Loudoun County father, arrested in 2021 following an outburst at a school meeting about the school's transgender policy after his daughter was sexually assaulted in a school's bathroom. Here's what he had to say earlier today.
They used me to silence moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and everybody else that we're starting this movement to protect our children and stand up for our rights, you know, to protect our children and say what we think's right for them. They tried to shut us down.
You know, Joy, this makes me think of when law enforcement gets it wrong, it's so nice to have a governor that has the power to step in and get it right.
You're absolutely right. Let me tell you something, Sean, and you know this. You have a daughter. I don't know how I would react in his position. I hope it wouldn't be worse, but I did fight 2 wars, and I've got a warrior left in me. I mean, I'm glad he didn't take it any further than he did, but I don't know where I would stop. You'd have to arrest me or shoot me probably if you hurt my daughter that way. And I'm glad that he stood up. I'm glad he used his voice and everything in him to say this is not acceptable. The fact he was arrested and charged, and it blows my mind. What kind of communities do we have where the assailant has more rights than the victim? What kind of communities do we have where we advocate to put innocent girls in situations where this could happen and then try to cover it up? That's the real gruesomeness of this. The governor, in my opinion, had no choice if he wanted to keep his soul than to pardon this man, so I'm glad he did. And I tell you what, it makes me take a second look at him if he has aspirations beyond governor of Virginia.
You know, law enforcement and the media tried to sell this individual, Mr. Smith, as a crazy MAGA Republican, and then we heard the rest of the story. That his daughter was actually sexually assaulted in the school. Outrageous, and good for Glenn Youngkin for pardoning this father. Joy Jones, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.